Here comes the stream in just a second. And we are live, it looks like.
Sweet.
All right, so ready for the tick, tick, ticks?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this.
Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, or I suppose good middle of the night if that's when you're listening to this show. Welcome to Good, Bad, or Bullshit. Random topics, unrehearsed conversation, quality reviews. My name's Michael Hodgins. I'm one of your three hosts on this fine show, along with the one and only Mr. Crofton Steers. Hello, Crofton.
Hello, Michael. Hello, listeners.
And the one and only as well, because we're all genetically unique individuals here on this show. No twins, to speak of, Mr. Beau Schwartz.
Hello, Crofton. Hello, Michael. Hello, GBB listeners. Glad to be a part of another episode of this fine show.
Twin Slam.
Yeah, that's not the first time we've slammed twins.
Yeah, stop discriminating against,
Whatever, they're
stop
not
marginalizing identical twins. Like, we need to celebrate them for their differences too, or their similarities and homogeneity, or homogeny.
They're natural clones.
Sure, yes.
It's kind of cool.
Is that a disparaging remark, or is that an observational fact?
I think it's sort of true.
It seems like if Mother Nature has the ability, or if we have the ability to create these natural clones, you'd think we would just be able to easily duplicate that and create artificial clones. But I guess we're not there yet.
You guys are clone obsessed.
We still have many strives to make as a species.
Hey, we should put cloning into our bucket of sci-fi / reality things.
Oh yeah, we did do cloning, didn't we?
Do we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Shut up. We're now at the point where we've done so many topics that I can't even remember the ones that we've done.
Yeah, we talked about like the Dolly the sheep and like, if you could grow your own organs to replace your lung cancer ridden ones from smoking.
I'll have to listen to that one. It'll be like listening to a whole new conversation with myself.
A bygone era of early shows.
I hope my older prejudice stand up to the test of time.
I would count on that. How are you guys doing today? Feeling good?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day. It's been a beautiful weekend. It's a shame that I only get out for walks. I feel like I should be doing more. But that being said, it's great weather.
I went to a water park yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I heard.
Did you wash all the fecal matter off of you?
Sorry, what?
Did you wash all of the fecal matter off of you?
It was a pretty big park. I feel like the fecal matter was probably fairly dilute.
Everywhere.
What was interesting is when I was leaving the place, I was like, because we just did theme parks, and I was like, yep, I stand by my verdict.
Yours was bad. What I find funny is that you went to the theme park. Like, it's like, you're the guy, you're like, I hate them.
I also said the police was bad, but if someone was stabbing me, I'd still call them.
Yeah, I guess. I don't think that makes sense, but whatever.
Sure.
You hypocrite, Mike, calling the police when you getting stabbed, but yet you won't rank them good on bullshit. You don't deserve police.
The thing is, I find those water parks are like, they are theme parks, sort of. The theme, I guess, is water, whatever. But like, I do find that they're, because of all the water waste and stuff, I don't know, like, I'm a little more mixed on those ones than I am regular theme parks.
But it was really what it was like the lineups, and that wasn't even a super crowded day. We asked the guy at the front gate what the capacity was, and he said 15,000 people. And we said, how many people were there today? He said around 6,000. And I was like, oh God, I am so glad I'm not here.
But you did go on a sunny summer Sunday where I drove by it today, and it was pretty dead. Like,
yeah, but it wouldn't, even yesterday with the wind blowing, I was chilly, and the water is sort of warm there, but like you get cold pretty quick unless it's a real hot day here in Canada.
It's the child's urine.
It does seem like a weird place to have a water park where we're in a frozen wasteland half of the year. It seems like poor planning.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed. I saw it on my way back from the Eastern Townships. Did we miss an episode of this show? No, we're squeezing this in. Yeah, but I was off for a week in cottage country, and it was my first trip with the baby, and I gotta say, I'm glad we did it. but I'm also glad it's over. So, notch that as a complete thing, and now maybe trips won't be so scary in the future. But at the same time, traveling with kids, I appreciate it a lot more now.
It's definitely a challenge. Having done a lot of it, I'm like, because it was my sentiments exactly when we did the cottage thing with the baby. I was like, oh, thank God that's over. It's like you don't learn your lesson, then you go do it again. But
I don't understand not having a kid. How is it
they
any
just
less
make you just
more
imagine taking a
irritating?
road trip with someone who screams in your face if they're at all peeved. Like they just like, I don't like this, and they scream at the top of their lungs until you stop. It
But
just can
but
be
they'd be
very
screaming at
frustrating.
home anyways. Like it's not the trip's fault.
No,
No, they wouldn't
they
be.
wouldn't be necessarily. That's the thing. It's the difference. It's the difference that throws them. And the other thing is, and I really do believe this is true. There's something like biologically wired between you and your kid that, like, you can hear a kid cry in a restaurant and you're like, oh, that's annoying or whatever. But when it's your kid, it like it. My wife often says how our child is really well behaved but has a really bad temper, and she gives examples where she makes it sound like our kid screams really loud in public places, but I think it's just because she hears it at like 100 decibels higher than what it is because she's the mom and I'm the same. So you're in the kid and you're in the car and your kid is crying and it's like it just feels way louder than it is and you're getting stressed while driving and you just I don't know. It's like
All
Yeah,
right.
you're trying to do something stressful too. Like you're stuck in the car, you're on the highway. There's just this other force there. Anyways, it's not something you want to do all the time.
Well,
yeah.
speaking of something you don't want to do all the time, I think we should talk about a random topic.
Let's
Wait,
yes,
I like to do that all the time. It's fun.
let's do a random
All right,
topic.
pull-
Got the machine going,
Yep.
ready to go here.
All right, we're waiting, Mike.
And the topic today is traveling with children.
Oh, the topic today is polygamy.
Polygamy.
Polygamy is that has to do with marrying more than one other person, right?
Yeah, having many wives.
It's not. What's polyandry? Hang on.
Polyamory is like just multiple. I think polygamy is general. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think it's like one man and his many wives. Whereas
Yeah.
I think polyamory is like a mixture of men and women that all are kind of equally, in a relationship together.
Okay.
What about like just lots of sex? Like, let's say there's a married couple, and I don't know, they're going to swingers parties and all that sort of stuff. Is that
Not
an
polygamy.
no?
No, because polygamy is
I don't
illegal
know.
in a lot of places, and things like swinging isn't illegal. It's the fact of like marrying or someone is a legal thing, and I think polygamy is marrying of multiple people, having more than one marriage partner.
All right, hang on. So polygamy exists in three specific forms: polygyny, wherein a
Where are you
man
getting this
has.
from?
This is from Wikipedia, which we all label as good.
Yeah, it's great.
Polygyny, it's polygyny, wherein a man has multiple simultaneous wives. Polyandry, where a woman has multiple husbands, simultaneous husbands, or a group marriage where the family unit consists of multiple husbands and wives. So, marriage being like wives, husbands being operative words in these sort of definitions. It's nothing to do with casual sex, as we talked about a few weeks ago. It's strictly multiple, concurrent marriages.
Well, this is one of those weird ones where it's like, not weird ones, but there's a couple where I know that not one of the three of us have any experience in this. Like,
As far as we know, because you might have a secret wife. One of you might have a secret wife somewhere.
yeah, it'd be funny if this was the avenue that we used to reveal it. We're like, oh, this is a good time to bring up my secret wife in Atlanta. But yeah, no, I just think that it's one of those things that like you're exposed to through the media. There was also this show on HBO with Bill Paxton called Big Love that I'm sure not one of the three of us watched.
I considered watching it. I didn't.
But then you did.
That's a big deal. He considered it.
Yeah,
That's
it's
an
true.
honor.
So to lay the groundwork here, we are not super informed. What I do know about polygamy often stems from media coverage of, in particular, Mormons around Salt Lake City area, and multiple sort of sister wives to a husband, and sometimes, and it's not just in that area. There's been other sort of cults or groups that where some of these wives are like extremely young and are married to, like, a guy in his 40s, and it's like,
Let's try 60s.
yeah, and there's like 16-year-old wives and all this sort of thing.
Well,
So
some people have likened it essentially to human trafficking, where you have these kind of patriarchs, old dudes who sort of trade their young daughters to other old dudes who have, 20 wives or something, so they can all keep having young wives. Those stories certainly make it sound bad. And I think also of the Canadian example, which is Bountiful, British Columbia, which is always or often in the news here. And I think their leaders from Salt Lake City, and kind of because it's, I believe polygamy is illegal in the States, but kind of happens under the radar. But certainly it seems like, maybe we should take a step back here, because I feel like there's these forms in which it exists. Mormonism and some Islamic sects, I think, have polygamy, maybe other places too. But just in theory, okay, so say like you're a man or a woman, and you have many of partners in your relationship. What, just aside from all the baggage associated with how it's going, what do you guys think about that in theory?
In
So
theory,
like
having
Beau, you have like
well, I,
8
I feel like
wives. Imagine that.
we've done marriage before, and if I'm not mistaken, did I say it was bad?
Probably.
I
Sounds
might
like
have
you.
said it was bad. So I need to go back and look, or whatever. But I know it was either bullshit or bad. And being on the negative side of things, I don't think having multiples from my perspective will be any better of a verdict. So what do I think of polygamy? Well, um, I think it's so hard because it's hard to talk about polygamy without talking about marriage, and I feel like if everyone's consenting in having this sort of arrangement of multiple marriages, then what's the problem? And the problem, I think, sort of boils down to the, I don't know what the right word is, but the super story or the larger narrative happening around these things, wherein it's a male dominated society. There's male privilege, and so the reason why there's multiple wives has to do with gender roles in a traditional community of taking care of women. But you know, like in a vacuum, I'd say, well, I mean, if marriage is so great, then why not spread it around? And this seems cool. But I know that's not very practical or realistic thinking to the examples of polygamy we have today, which are like I immediately conjure. Is it Amish communities that have polygamy? Who are the big polygamists in
I
North
think you're
Mormon.
thinking
America?
of Mormons.
Mormons. Okay,
the
I think of Mormons. You know.
I think Mike raises an interesting point, which is the theoretical versus the practical on this. So, you know, it's one of those things that people kind of frown upon, but often that stems from their own traditional upbringings, and it also stems from how it exists currently. When you look at what it is in theory, and I think Beau makes a good point when he says, if I'm not for marriage, how can I be for multiple marriages? And I think that that's kind of the kicker, because marriage is sort of like a commitment between two individuals, and uh, outside of marriage, like sort of a dating multiple people or having multiple relationships. That's sort of like they're sort of antithesis of each other. So to have one that sort of both seems almost like it shouldn't be able to exist. And I think for it to exist in a pure idealistic form, it would have to be one in which um, it's not focused on a particular individual, it's focused on the group, meaning that I'm in love with X woman, she's in love with me. I'm in love with Y woman, she's in love with me, and X woman and Y woman are in love with each other, right? Um, as opposed to
That
just
sounds more like polyamory, though.
right, which
Which
wasn't
is
that
sort
in
of
one of the
different.
things?
I think it'd be more like,
But that's what when Beau read the definition off the top, that was one of the three, right?
yeah,
Like,
I guess that,
I,
okay,
I,
we're lumping that in. All right.
well, I'm just saying that that's to me, in theory, looking at it, the one that sounds like functionally the healthiest in quotation mark. Whereas the other ones feel really like in the theory behind them just seems like even in theory having one person with three people in love with them and them in love with those three people, I just feel that that doesn't seem, for
So
lack of a better term, healthy.
because
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
three separate connections happening. That's what you're trying to say. Like it's like I have this relationship with Jennifer, and then I have this relationship with Yolanda, but Yolanda and Jennifer don't like talk to each other, or they don't have that affection. That affection doesn't go those ways. So you're saying like that seems like a selfish type of marriage arrangement for me, the man, in having two separate things. Whereas if all three of us love each other in sort of this equitable way, then it seems like maybe that's a great union of three people.
Like I think it could be theoretically. Like I don't know of
Yeah,
one, and I haven't seen one. But that's right,
that's what
Beau.
you're
And
saying,
it
though. Yeah.
doesn't have to be that. Like it often is the man, but like even if it was a woman, and she was with one man,
Ted and Steve.
Steve and Rolando were both in love with her,
Yeah.
and she marries them both, but they just are civil but don't really care for one another. They just are both mutually in love with her. I don't think that's any better. I really think there needs to be some sort of
But if Steve and Rolando loved each other too, and there was a three-way
love
chain of
connection.
love, then then it's cool.
I mean, I don't see why that couldn't work. But again, it's like, I mean, I'm being raised with really traditional values, and I feel it, like I feel it in my brain thinking like, well, even that is kind of like, I don't know, there's more money, more problems, like it just sounds like you get three people. I'm not sure if you've ever been in a situation where you have roommates, but generally, rule of thumb is if you have three roommates, there is always a bad roommate. So you've got two roommates, you get on well, or maybe you don't get on well, who knows, whatever. But soon as there's a third roommate, one of them is shittier than the other, and then you and the other one commiserate about the third one. Generally, you're like, oh, that one's the shitty roommate. And
but
if you're the shitty roommate, you probably don't realize it. So
roommates are different than like. I think your point is humorous and it's like it's funny, but when people are
I
in love, it's different than roommates, right?
Well, if it is polygamy, was that what it was? Where it's
Polygamy is the word.
where it's like, say it's a man with many wives, and all those wives relationships with each other is essentially one of roommates, because they only have the connection and they love connection with the one male. Then essentially it is like roommates, really, and some of them will get along better than others. And I can see there being problems if we're lumping polyamory in with this, which I feel is something distinct. It definitely changes the conversation, because a lot of people will argue that monogamy is not really sustainable. And I mean, a lot of people would argue that, and I might argue that myself. But certainly, if you look at divorce rates at 50% and things like that, that maybe monogamy is not really sustainable, and that maybe polyamory, where there's multiple people, you can have groups of, I think the numbers you're saying 6, where there'll be like 3 women and 3 men, and they're all kind of in love with each other, and that way you're not in a monogamous relationship. And if you want to have sex with someone else within the relationship, you still have that kind of commitment within the group, but yet you feel like you have more sort of sexual freedom and things like that. So maybe it does make sense in that context. If I think about polygamy, I'm just going to say polygamy because that's what I always thought it was, where it's like the one, and again, it's usually a man with many wives. And I think of the in theory part, I'd be like, you know, I can understand if you're like a selfish man, it makes sense. You could be like, oh yeah, I got like 10 wives and I can just, sleep with whenever, whichever one of them I want whenever I want kind of thing. It sounds like great. But I temper that with being you have to be very selfish and maybe view people not as individuals with complex needs, but more as objects or as your possessions. And that's often
I,
my problem when I think about it. And I know that's biased. Maybe they can't all be in equal footing, but I really feel like it's a paternalistic relationship where you have the one figure who's kind of the boss and all these other people who are essentially subservient to them. And I think those, when you think of like the term a harem of women, where um, in the past it'd be people, kings and things like that, just have all these women that are essentially concubines or people who'd serve them. I feel like if you're a big power-seeking sort of selfish person, it sounds great, right? You have someone to do all your sort of biddings and fulfill all your sexual needs, but essentially they're not as free as you are. So that's like if you're selfish, I get it. I
I
get
think
it. It sounds great, but you have to not respect
I,
other people's sort of autonomy.
I think you make a lot of good points about that, and that's reflective of like a quote unquote enlightened Western view on polygamous cultures. But I think that like having been exposed to a little bit through television, which let's face it is a terrible filter to get your information from, but there is a sense that like there is a culture around it. So it's like you might say all of what you just said to the men and women involved in polygamous cultures, and they would staunchly defend it as not something where the man's being selfish, but the man is taking care of many women, and that's sort of their responsibility. Like, even though it's not that I'm saying you're wrong or people should disagree with you or I disagree with you, but that for those inside of it, there is meaning to that structure. That sort of that your portrayal of it would be, denigrating or be seen as like an outsider's view that doesn't really understand the spiritual meaning behind having many wives in the polygamy example. That being said, genetically, I think it's accepted. I think like most anthropologists, human
Yep.
studiers would tell you that like we're not naturally monogamous. It doesn't come naturally to us, or we naturally would seek out other partners. But that our idea behind marriage is our ideas about how to live as a community, right? To live fair, like we'll pair bond with another person, and in the community we'll be recognized as such, even though from a biological standpoint, I mean, our biology has no quandary about finding other partners to mate with. And I think it's another thing to say, well, hey, I'm married, but I'm going to go have extramarital sex and it's all cool in the gang. And it's another thing. It's not about sex if you're actually getting multiple wives. I think that's more about your gender role in that culture, and it's more about power, like the patriarchy that you were talking about. The feeling of being the man of the house with all these people. I feel like it has more to do with that than it does with sex, because like a harem, they're basically slaves, I think, in that extreme case.
Well, and I wonder also about maybe the value of child rearing if you have a group. Maybe it's easier. Having a small child now, I will say that certainly for the first year, the woman is much more important than the man. In raising a child, maybe someone is like, well, you only need one man, but if you had like five women, it'd be easier. And so, and being that we're primates, and I had an experience where I was in traveling in Borneo, and I got to see some orangutans, and those orangutans, they're into the polygamy because they went to some place where it was an orangutan sanctuary, and they put all these bananas, and the orangutans came up, and there was one like sort of big dude and a whole bunch of like women orangutan, and he was essentially just molesting all of them. I mean, I assume he was just going from one to the next, and I was like, whoa, these orangutans are some sexy animals, and they like getting it on. But it's just like the one dude, and he's like got all these women around him. So there's certainly, and I think it's the same with gorillas too. You got a silverback gorilla, and he mates with all the women, but I don't think that that's the same with humans, and that's I think what people will point to is we're not monogamous, but I think again coming back to child rearing, it takes a long time to raise a human child, like a long time. And I think some people say that's why pair bonding happens, and that there's that more solid relationship of two people because you need a kind of partnership to raise a child for that long before they become self-sufficient. But I don't know.
The
Maybe it's more easier if you have a group.
Well, it is funny because there is a lot of this sort of male kind of selfishness. I remember I was working this job way back when, and there was a guy who had gotten his girlfriend, quite young girlfriend, pregnant, and he's going to propose to her, and he was in love with her and all this sort of thing, and then he was telling me, he's like, Crofton, I don't know about this, monogamy thing. He's like, I don't know, like, if for the long haul, like, I'm really in love with her and that sort of stuff, but I'm still attracted, to other women and this sort of thing. And then and I asked him, I said, well, what if she was like attracted to other men and that sort of thing? And he'd be like, what other men? I'll kick their asses. What other men? And I was like, there's clearly a double edge there where you're sort of thinking only about yourself and not necessarily about the other person. Do I think it's possible to be see? Because the thing is with monogamy, and one of the criticisms is that, like, it's based on the myth of the soulmate, the partner that is you're meant to be, that you found each other and this sort of thing. That's hokum, and the big thing is there's probably multiple people out there you could be in love with, and that's where it gets complicated. So again, in theory, I could be in love with like three different women, and to have my cake and eat it too, maybe I'd want to be married to all three of these women, and so if we were in a society in which power was imbalanced in such a way that I could take advantage of that, I may be tempted to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm able to have this relationship where they each, as long as each of them is okay and they're all in love with me, they don't even really have to get along together, So that's what's worrisome. Do I think that polygamy should be legal? I think yes, because I really don't. It's one of those like government in the bedrooms type thing. However, I do think it's one of those things that needs like some sort of safeguards to ensure that people aren't taken advantage of, as you were hearing about these like practically kids that are being sold into marriage and this sort of thing. So I mean, in theory I'm okay with polygamy, but in the examples that I'm seeing in practice, I'm not really cool with these examples I'm seeing. And is part of the reason that these things are the way they are due to the criminality? Like, is it like, drugs because they're illegal, or because they're frowned upon, they're circulated more widely or in dangerous ways? Like, if it was more a part of our regular day in life, and if it was worked into our system of marriage and all this, and if it wasn't looked at as too much of an oddity, would it be less sort of, would there be less toxic situations than there currently are? That I'm curious
Yeah,
about.
because and a lot of what we're talking about is the perspective of the male, and I think, like, I don't know, it's like, it's not even about sex. It's about, like, what if I only got like 1/4 of my partner's attention, like, assuming it was even, and assuming I'm the woman in this relationship, because let's face it, I don't think there are very many, if any, examples of multiple men married to the same woman, like, in
I
reality.
think there actually are examples in some
Examples,
cultures,
but like, it's outlying data. Like, there's no.
I think it's the minority of cases, but I think
Yeah.
there are examples.
Well, there probably are examples, but I'm saying it's probably very, very rare. And so but think about being whatever denomination of gender in this equation, I guess, is like, I look at it like from a woman's perspective, where it's like, I'm getting 1/4 of my partner's attention, I'm raising kids, I'm doing all this stuff. Is this what I want out of a partnership? It feels like you're getting shortchanged, in the concept of marriage. And the concept of marriage is one of celebration of a union of love between two people, and the most romantic notion, which, let's face it, that's what these things are. Even the Bible, I think, lends itself to some romance in talking about how special that union is.
Well, the
There,
Bible also has lots of examples of polygamy in it.
I'm not defending it using the Bible, but I'm saying that there is poetry involved. Like it is a thing of beauty, even for 'cause marriage to me is a religious thing. So if you're getting married, I feel like especially in the in polygamous relationships like that, there's got to be a religious factor in this. But
Well,
it's about love, and the point is you're getting
well, you say it's
shortchanged.
about love, but I think in the Bible it's really about wealth. And I think back then it was actually about transfer of wealth back when we talked about this in the marriage episode and I think in the divorce episode where women were essentially property of their
Well,
fathers
that's like I'm
and traded.
okay. I guess to put it in context, I'm speaking currently, and I'm not speaking historically because yes, marriage was about
Right, but if
transfers
you're
of
bringing up
properties
the
in history.
Bible,
But
it's
people
not
still
really
use the
that
Bible.
current.
But people actively use the Bible to rationalize their beliefs today, even though yes, it's old. Like there are people who do that. And the point I'm trying to make is that no matter how romantic a notion you can make of marriage, you are devaluing the idea of that bond between two people by having by one person having multiples of those concurrently.
Well, I think it's a good point. And if I think about my own marriage and how I view my role as a good partner in that marriage, and I think about myself as a whole individual. So I have my time that I want to devote to my partner, my time I have to devote towards my work, and my personal interests that all require a portion of my time, right? And then I imagine that, so for me to be a good partner, I needed to have X amount of time, whatever that is, that I devote to my partner. Now, if I were to just imagine that I had 8 wives and I still needed to fit in working to make some money and personal interests that I do on my own or with friends, and then personal time for eight women that I was in theory in love with, I personally could not be a good partner to all those women. I feel like I
You
can
need
be a good partner.
clones.
What?
You need clones or twins.
I would, yeah, if I was a twin, this is an anti-twin slam, then yeah, maybe I could do it. But
Comedians
but
call
for
this kind of
me,
humor a callback.
but for me, one partner is what I can handle. Like I feel like I can be a good partner to one person. I can give them the amount of energy that I feel is necessary to meet their partnership needs and to still meet my own needs. And as soon as I threw anyone else into that equation, things would start falling apart. And I'm not saying necessarily that I think that these sort of Mormon men are exemplars of how to spread love around, because I don't know that that's the case. I think that, like what Beau said, probably some people are being shortchanged in that relationship. Now, maybe another perspective on that is if coming back to, like, say you're a woman in that relationship, or say I'm one of many husbands and I'm married to, I have this one woman, but I have a lot of personal interests that I like to do. I like to play, say, video games. I like to go rock climbing or hiking. I like to do some writing and some reading. I think all these things I like to do. And then I think, like, well, hey, I only got the one wife, and say she's like, okay, look, buddy, I got time for you on Thursdays. Other than that, there's Bob, there's Steve, Brad. They need a lot of love too. So you got Thursdays and like Sunday mornings, and I'd be like, okay. And then maybe I'd feel pretty free, and that I'd be like, man, I can do whatever I want, And I'm just
So what do you?
envisioning this
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
sense that I'm not the property
So
of,
what do
of
you?
this
What?
one wife that can't do anything.
Yeah.
But maybe I'd have all these times to explore personal interests. Maybe that's maybe there is something to it.
Well, I think it's definitely like I feel like that's a male perspective on what the marriage would look like, because generally men like to be free to do their stuff, and they don't feel the same sense of.
So what do you say? Whereas women,
Well, no,
like,
because
don't
of
need
because of
freedom?
because of gender roles. For example, men are more like in this scenario, are you working or are you dependent on your income from that woman? Because that changes things. In a lot of what I see, the women end up stuck at home with kids, dependent financially on the man so it's not like they can go out and have a whole life, and they're raising their kids, and they tend to be depressed and probably stuck at home a lot. Like, it's not all better. They're not like, I don't know, you don't look at these marriages and they're all like, man, we have all this free time for Pilates. It's great. You know, like I don't think they
Well,
live
we
that
also
way.
shouldn't,
You know.
it's such a hard thing because I don't want to make assumptions, sort of like you do, to be like, well, probably some of these women feel caged and maybe they're depressed. That's an assumption. They might be totally fine for it. And I think Crofton had brought up that some of them view their sort of sister wives as like sisters, and they really prize those relationships. There's part of me that's like, that's because they're brainwashed, is what I feel like saying. But again, that's me imposing my outsider's view upon it. And maybe that they're not.
Yeah.
That's just their culture, and I'm, cultural relativism. I shouldn't judge theirs by the way I view things. But that is tends to where I want to go as well. But I'm like, it's not maybe fair to do that.
But I would say then they need to get their own show, because your view is definitely
Oh well, I'm saving that to my verdict. Sure,
yeah,
but yeah.
fair enough. I just say, like, and before moving to verdicts, the one thing that I find too is that the in Beau's talked about the outside sex stuff, like, because it's easy to get caught up in the sex stuff. But the shared intimacy, and Mike was pointing about sort of time and calendar during the week. But like every night, like I go to bed with my wife or whatever, and we, like, sleep together, cuddle together or whatever, and this sort of thing. If I
Ooh, is
knew
it getting hot in here?
if I knew that I could only do that like on Sundays and maybe Mondays, and meanwhile, like, Ronaldo and John are doing it on other days or whatever, like,
Steve.
I would. I don't know. Not only would it bother me out of jealousy, it would make me kind of like, you could argue, oh well, you will appreciate the nights that she's available to sleep with you much more, because I think, like, and again, I haven't seen Bill Paxton's show, but I think the deal was that he had like a rotating schedule of like, oh, tonight I'm sleeping with this woman, and it didn't mean necessarily sex. It just meant that night he was going to spend that night in that bed or something like that. And I don't know, man, like, it just feels like it's one thing if it's three people sleeping together in the same bed or something and they all love each other and whatever, okay. But if it's like one person making a calendar of who they're going to spend their time with, and everybody sort of pining for that one person's attention.
It's funny. I'm seeing, like, in my mind, there's a lot of parallels for me with this and the casual sex one, where I'm like, in theory, maybe it could work out, but I have to look at it from my own perspective, and I would feel, and I probably have my insecurities, but as like the scenario you pointed out, so say I'm the husband, and I get Thursdays, and then my wife comes to bed with me, and she's like, "Oh, I'm tired. We're just gonna go to bed." And then it's Fridays the next night, and she's sleeping with Brad, and I'm in the next room, and I hear, oh Brad," and then the next night, her and Steve are just
That Brad's an animal.
the walls are shaking, and then Ronaldo on Tuesday. Oh, Ronaldo. And then Thursday again, she's like, I'm just so beaten. I'm going to be like, oh man, I'm the shittiest lover here. And that might, my insecurities would take her real hit, because that stuff can't all be equal. As much as in theory, maybe it could be, it can't be. Not everyone's sexual connections are the same, or romantic connections, and there would be imbalances within those relationships. There have to be. Someone would like spending some more time with one of the persons, with one of the people, or have a better physical connection with them. And you, as another party in that relationship, might feel jealousy for that, or insecurity on your own. Man, more problems. I sound like
More money, more problems. All right, let's do some verdict.
verdicts.
Yeah, does we got that little train thing that comes in? Or... Oh wait, I hear it coming.
Order, I say. Order in the court.
Just before we all get into it here, can we just say we're not really talking about polyamory, where it's all, because it's really going to change my verdict if we're including polyamory.
I feel like polygamy is a arrangement of marriages in some sort of configuration.
I guess. All right, whatever. I'll try to sort it out.
Yeah.
Be a man, Hodgins. That's
All right, I'll
horrible.
go first since I'm talking. Oh man, because as much as you want to separate, you want to keep it in the theory realm of talking about this stuff. It's too hard for me to separate it from the realities of it, and the way that I really do think the power dynamics do come into play in a lot of the examples of polygamy we see, and I would even suspect in polyamory as well. Though I know that that's the aim is that as well, or is to be more equal among the partners. But certainly when you think of like Mormon polygamy and others, it's, let's face it, largely it's a patriarchal thing. The man is in charge. He has as many wives, and their freedom, I think, is probably no, there's limits there. They give up a lot of personal freedom to be part of that kind of thing, and I think it amounts to human trafficking a lot of the time. Bringing the polyamory into this, that wants to pull me towards bullshit. But the polygamy, I really do think I'm gonna have to go bad. I just, when I think of like women's rights and struggles of feminism for equality and that kind of thing, I just think that mostly when we see polygamy, it's a power dynamic and it's not a balanced one. So yeah, I'll go with bad. Though it was a hard one, I will say.
I will pretty much copy and paste Mike's verdict. This is one of those rare ones where I pretty much agree 100% with everything he said. I feel that that even when you include the one that I can't say, polyamory or whatever, even when you include that, we talked enough about it that I started thinking, oh yeah, there's a lot to bear in mind when you embark in a relationship like that. I don't necessarily think these things should be illegal as they are in places in the States. I do think that it's important to defend victims, both male but largely female, from situations of exploitation and that. But so I don't think it should be illegal. But that said, there's not enough in the way of redeeming value, and I could see it be like having a sort of a creeping toxicity to the overall relationships. I led off by saying that I've not been in one of these types of relationships. I don't have the experience. So my verdict is coming from that place. It's coming from what I think as an outsider looking in at these places with the upbringing that I have. But I just feel that it's more bad than it is good or even bullshit. So I'm going to agree with Mike and say polygamy is bad.
I definitely share Michael's sense of being a little like there's that little window of exception for the polyamory side of things, like the concept of being connected through more than just two people in multiple connecting ways. I think we all kind of want to leave the door open for unique and different kinds of relationships that our paradigm doesn't fit. Like, we don't want to just say, well, we have this rigid structure of pair bonding, marriage is good, but polygamy is bad. Because I think we have examples and reasons how, marriages to multiple people can be exploitative or can marginalize certain people within that marriage structure. But I think that like pure polyamory, like if Ronaldo, Steve, and I can't remember, Jesse were in a relationship and all three loved each other equally, all three ways, then that would be like a beautiful thing. I would find reasons to be like, well, I still think marriage is bullshit, but I'm glad that all three of you equally participate in this bullshit together. That's love. So for that for that reason, I think I'm going to sort of coast on what I think was my verdict on marriage, because I think marriage overall, like, I think the joke would be that a lot of married people would be like, oh, I can't stand the one I have. How can I have more than one? Why would I have two? Like a lot of those surly old school married people that, are just like, why did I even get married? The day I'm thinking like of Al Bundy.
Or like the take my wife, please.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you're you're polygamist. Would you like to marry my wife so I can be single again? Like, there are lots of people out there who make those kinds of jokes. So I feel like, I feel like it's probably a lot of work to keep a marriage going with multiple people, and it would have to be really worth it. And I want to believe that there are cases where these kinds of unique relationships fit into the fabric of our culture. So for that reason, I'm just going to say, all marriage is bullshit, and so is polygamy, since it's like a big heaping pile of bullshit. But I'm all for unique and interesting love relationships. Yeah.
The end.
Yes. Well, if
It required a lot of explanation. Sorry, Mike.
If anyone out there listening is in a polyamorous or a polygamous relationship, I feel like polyamorous is way more likely than polygamous. And you have an opinion about this because you're informed about it as we are not, please let us know. You can write into the show, goodbadbull@gmail.com. Again, that's goodbadbull@gmail.com. You can send us a tweet at goodbadbull. And you can visit our website, goodbadbull.com, to find out our contact information, or you can listen to our shows there. You can also subscribe to us on Stitcher or iTunes, and give us a like on Facebook if you do like the show. And guys, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, Crofton, where can our listeners find you at?
They can find me at Crofton Steers, but I'm sorry, ladies, one woman man.
Hey, that means there's room for the guys.
There's a lot of silence after that comment.
It's the sound of millions of women's hearts breaking simultaneously.
And guys, not just women. There might be guys that want to get a piece of the Crofton.
But I said sorry, ladies, and you made it anyway.
So you did. So men, you're open to men. I got it. All right, Ronaldo.
Yeah,
you're
Ronaldo
good.
is like, ooh.
He's just said sorry, ladies. He didn't say sorry, men and ladies.
So, Beau, where can you're open to a polygamous relationship? Where can the many women find you at?
All right, the many men and women who want to, solicit me for a polygamous relationship don't solicit me because that's creepy. But if you wanted to do it, you can find me at Beau Schwartz on Twitter, where I tweet about some of the other stuff I do, like the ! Podcast, all about video games.
He's single, ladies.
And men and ladies.
Indeed. All the ladies. And you can find me at ML Hodgins, where I like to occasionally rate something I find out in the street and take a picture of it and tweet it. We have we have stickers on this show, good, bad, or bullshit stickers. And if you write in, we'll send you some, and you can stick them on things to give your ratings. And please do send us a picture of that if that's the case.
We need to come up with a title for people who do that, by the way. So if you have some ideas for that, listener, send us in. Like, the Verdict Masters or the Judgifiers.
We'll keep working on it.
Yeah, that sounds like it needs some work.
It's still in the oven.
I do want to give a shout out to longtime listener Tracy and her sister Rhonda, who went to wine country recently, and they ran out of stickers, so they made their own and started trying to, take pictures and send them to us. That was pretty cool.
We need to get them some more stickers.
It's true.
Yep. So that's part of our viral campaign, and I can't wait to see what other people are going to. I've had some requests for stickers, so I'm going to be giving out the few that I have to people that have made those requests.
Hey, wouldn't it be crazy if Beau got in a relationship where he was married to a lady, but she was married to other guys, and he had like brother husbands and stuff like that, and then he was really good friends with them and introducing them to us? I don't know what I would think.
Strange.
It would be weird. I'd be like, Beau would be like, oh man, geez, Ronaldo and me, we were hanging out. Our girlfriend Tatiana was at work or whatever, and we were just hanging out, and it was pretty awesome playing some Xbox. I'm like, oh yeah,
it could work.
I could
use
one of those.
Beau's part of the show. Maybe once a week he can rate all his brother husbands. He can put a sticker on them.
He's like, I took this picture of Ronaldo while he was sleeping.
Listen, polygamous relationships are field mine, whatever. Like, I wouldn't want to, go disturbing the fabric of my relationships by posting their dirty laundry out in the air. That would cause me lots of problems at home, lots of long talks around the dinner table about, how we need to treat our brother husbands.
And he sounds like a keeper, ladies and gentlemen.
All right,
Alright, I
so
guess
I'm going to
that's-
turn off the live stream. If you're watching live, thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.